So before you got married, you were a slut maker.
Okay, sure.
I'm asking.
I suppose you could say that, yeah. I don't know if I would characterize it that way, but let's go.
And did you know that the women that you were having sex with were sluts?
No, I don't actually agree with this.
When times get tough, you need to get down. No need to look backward, put your feet on the ground. Stand up, stand up.
Welcome to TheFallenState. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. TheFallenState is on Patreon, so click the Patreon link to support our work. I have with me Chris Kohls. He's a writer, actor, and the host of the YouTube channel, Mr. Reagan. Thank you for coming, man.
Thank you for having me.
So how did you come up with Mr. Reagan title? You were just walking down the road and...
Yeah, I just thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'm watching Ben Shapiro, I'm watching Crowder, I'm watching all these guys, and it was like on a Saturday or something, it was a couple years back, and there weren't a ton of conservative YouTubers at the time.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I want to see more stuff. Like, there's a lot of politics going on right now. I want somebody else's perspective. I want some new stuff. I'm like, some other jerk's got to grab a microphone and a camera and do another show. And then I thought, wait, I've got a camera, I've got a microphone, I got some political opinions, I could do a show. But at the time, I was doing a lot of acting in Hollywood, small parts, stuff like that, but some major projects.
Nice.
And I thought, if people know that you're conservative in Hollywood, unless you're like a really, really big name, you'll get blacklisted. People will not hire you. So I thought, well, I can't use my name. I can't come out with, who's like a political, a person that I admire, who's somebody I admire politically, that people will immediately identify, okay, I know what this person's politics is, right? And I thought, well, Reagan, obviously Reagan. So I thought, okay, I'll call myself Mr. Reagan. So I thought of like the name, I came up with like the logo, I came up with everything in like an hour.
Nice.
I was just like, okay, boom, 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 got it, put the show on, and it was almost immediately relatively successful.
How long you been doing it?
About 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And so it took off right away?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, people didn't know who I was at first, but the production quality was okay compared to other people at the time. Most people do a YouTube video, they just shoot themselves with their phone, and that's their first video. I had a separate mic and camera, which 2 years ago, people didn't know that that's what you should do, unless they already got a show going, and then they start to think about how to make. So people thought, oh, the production value is pretty good, but they didn't know who I was. But then I found Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was doing all this stuff. Yeah. And I reacted to something that he had done a debate with Michael Eric Dyson. And Michael Eric Dyson called him a mean, mad white man. Remember that? And so I did this reaction to that, and that kind of blew up, and that kind of took me off. And then I did a Gillette parody video, which was pretty popular. And then I revealed who the people behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were, the puppeteers pulling the strings. Yeah. And that was a revelation to people, because I think everybody kind of knew that she wasn't coming up with her own stuff.
Yeah, I think somebody had to be behind her, because she seemed too dumb to do it on her own.
Yeah, well, sometimes she says things that are unbelievably stupid, but then sometimes she says these little, idiosyncratic things about history, or especially civil rights history, and you think, how does she know that? Yeah. And there was this weird disconnect with people, and people wanted to know, who's feeding her this information, and I think that's why that video was so popular.
So does Hollywood know you're doing this now? And has it affected you in acting?
Well, no, I mean, I just do YouTube full time now. The YouTube channel blew up so big that now I just do YouTube. But what's weird, man? Part of the reason I started my channel was to talk to leftists about, there's this idea on the left that every conservative, every Republican is a straight white man and they're all racist. Yeah. And I thought, I'm from Oregon, right? I've never met a racist. I've never met a racist. How many racists can there be if I've never met one? So I thought, okay, I got to make clear to people that Republicans are basically just ordinary folks with like a different political philosophy. So that was a lot of the reason why I started my show. But what I found was leftists just will not watch conservative content. Yeah. So nobody in Hollywood knows who I am, because none of them are watching conservative stuff. There are a couple of people that have secretly reached out to me, bigger names, people in Hollywood that you may know, you may not, but are at least associated with big stuff. And they've said, yes, secretly, but don't tell anybody. But yeah, I watch your show and stuff. And
Amazing.
that's really cool. Yeah.
So do they really believe that white people are racist in Hollywood, or they pretending to believe it to save their jobs?
Well, that's the big question now, right? Because the left has gotten so crazy
Yeah.
with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all this craziness, that a lot of people that I know who were strong leftists, or who essentially are strong leftists, I mean, in terms of the basic policies of the left,
Yeah.
but they're going to vote for Trump this year because
Right.
because they're just like
If
the left's
they're
gone
gonna-
the left's gone mental. You know?
Yeah.
So I do think that's changing. That's shifting. There's a lot of secret conservatives now, or not conservatives necessarily, but Trump supporters, people who are shifting a little bit more right in Hollywood. But yeah, you can't say it.
Yeah.
You can't say it. I'm a part of some groups out here in Hollywood, and you meet people occasionally.
Right. I think it's more than what we imagine now because of the rioting and looting and destruction that's happening in America, and especially the attack upon white people. So I think quietly a lot of people are going to vote for the president, but not tell anyone.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my thought as well.
Yeah. So how did you, before you tell me about this Alexander Cortez information you have, how did you find, are you able to say how you found out about who was pulling her string?
Yeah, actually, I got really lucky because at the time I had just gone to CPAC. I think this was 2018.
Yeah.
Just gone to CPAC, and I just asked around people, you know, who do you think it is? Because they're in Washington, they kind of maybe have a little bit more of a sense. I asked some senators and stuff, and somebody gave me a name of this guy, Saikat Chakrabarty. So I had the name of her, I think it was her campaign manager or something. And so I looked up everything I could on him. I watched every YouTube video, I read every article, and one of the videos that they had produced, this organization called, what was it? It was, it was a brand new Congress, and then it was something, I can't remember the other thing. It's a long time ago I made this video.
Right.
They put out a video talking about how they had sent out a casting call for people to basically become congressmen that they would then control the platform of.
Wow.
So they would set the platform for the congressman. The idea of Brand New Congress was to put in all socialists into Congress instead of the people that were there currently.
Right.
So if there was a moderate Democrat, or what they would call an establishment Democrat, they would primary them and try to get in one of their more far left socialist people, and they would set the agenda. And they talk in this video, they put this video out, and they talk about it like they're proud of it. Like, oh yeah, you don't do any of your own policy, right? We do all your policy for you.
Wow.
And she's like, yeah, oh yeah. You know, and
Amazing.
it was crazy, yeah. And they had just put that out like about the same time I was trying to do a video researching it. So they just fed me everything I needed, and I just kind of popularized that video.
And so is it her campaign manager that's behind her or someone else?
It's so there's a guy behind him. At first I thought it was the Young Turks guy, Cenk Uygur.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was Cenk Uygur, because Cenk Uygur was going on his show all the time saying that he had started this group, right, that brought AOC up and helped her become the congresswoman. And they did. They helped out, but it wasn't really his brainchild so much. He kind of presented it as if it was, but
Right.
it wasn't.
Okay.
It was really this guy named Zach Exley. And I now send him messages on Twitter sometimes. So, hi Zach. He does. I don't know how much he likes being called out. He's a very good political operator, but very few people know who he is. He used to work for Soros's organization.
Oh.
I don't know how connected he is to that.
Right.
Anybody can make their own guesses about that, but I think this is his own kind of thing. This Brand New Congress thing was his own idea, and he brought in Saikat Chakrabarty, and the two of them, I think, together, along with another guy whose name I forgot. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this. Otherwise, I would have rewatched my video.
Yeah.
I forgot about all this
I
stuff.
understand how that can happen.
But anyway, yeah, they brought up AOC, and she's. I think that they've more or less disconnected now. She's kind of her own thing, which is I think that's why we don't hear from AOC quite as much anymore.
I noticed that calmed down. I thought it was due to the upcoming election that she got quiet.
I think it's because Saikat left her organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Alexander, is she Hispanic or something? Is she white or what is she?
I think she's of Puerto Rican ancestry, I think.
Oh, something like that.
I think.
And so this guy that was doing all this behind the scenes, is he a white guy?
Saikat Chakrabarty is I think Indian.
Oh.
But certainly Zach Exley is white. Is about as
Wow.
white as you can. He's a white leftist. Yeah.
So what do they want? Do they really want to turn America into a socialist society, or there's something else going on?
Zach Exley would not say that he is like a Marxist in the traditional sense.
Right.
He would disagree with that. But I think that's because sometimes people don't like to classify themselves in ways that are sort of easily dismissible.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think that his politics essentially align with, Marxism.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Did they get angry at you for exposing this? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I mean, BuzzFeed did a hit piece on me. Snopes did a hit piece on me. Young Turks did a hit piece on me.
Wow.
Yeah, they all tried to discredit it. They said, because I used the word actress as a kind of, just a provocative title.
Right.
I said, AOC isn't really a congresswoman. She's basically just an actress, right? And, there's a metaphor. I don't
Right.
really mean she's like
Right.
on the stage performing. If I say a puppet, you wouldn't be able to debunk that by saying, look, she's not made of wood and felt. She's not a puppet. She's a regular human being. Well, yeah, of course, a puppet is being used as a metaphor. The word's
Yeah.
being used as a metaphor. Same with the word actress. But they debunked that claim essentially by trying to say that she wasn't in films and television shows.
Very good, man. Did you get any threats or anything about this?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I never really got threats. I mean, there was some harassment. Like I definitely, I went on to debate a guy, I forget his name, Destiny. He's this guy, he's got
Oh,
a
I
big
know
following.
who he is. Yeah.
Man, his fans are the most obnoxious people. They go on the internet and they start putting up all this like stuff online about
Yeah.
you and stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you guys doing? I mean,
Yeah.
not all of them. I'm sure some of them are perfectly nice people, but he's got some vicious people that go around and like hack different sites and put your names on things, and you got to go in and try to clean things up on the internet
Yeah.
afterwards. Like, I will never debate him again. I don't want anything. I don't want to associate with that guy because his fans are crazy.
Yeah.
You can't associate with certain people in the work that we do, which you have to learn the hard way. And it's not necessarily because of them. I don't think he's that bad of a guy, but his fans are
Your fans
crazy.
out there,
You
yeah.
got to be careful who you're dealing with
Yeah.
in this business.
That's for sure. I want to ask you. I wanted to start out with this. Did you watch the vice president debate last night?
Of course.
And who won?
Oh, Mike Pence won.
And why you say that?
Well, it's kind of funny. It's hard to assess it for me, I feel like, because I have a very specific perspective.
Yeah.
Right. I know about most of these issues. I know any little reference I get.
Right.
But the vast majority of Americans don't. The vast majority of Americans, they're watching it and they're just thinking, do I like this person? Do I dislike this person?
Right.
So I feel like the best assessment of the result of a debate is just to say who came across like looking better, right? And I really do think Pence came across looking like the adult in the room.
Yeah, that's
With
for sure.
Kamala looked very shrill and very smug.
Yeah, sure did.
And that's what a lot of my viewers said, but I don't think it's just conservatives that thought that. I think
No.
because I put together a little clips reel afterwards that you can find on my channel, and I compiled a bunch of moments where she was just like, I'm talking, or she'll just give this look like, and it's just this very
Yeah, we did something like that
nastiness.
this morning too. I think that she thought that she was going to go black woman on him, and since he's a white man, that he was going to be a Christian, soft little white guy.
He's gonna look too bland
afraid
and
to
white.
speak up to her and deal with her.
You might be right,
I
but she's
believe
not black.
But
She's
she's
Indian,
pretending
right?
she is right
She
now.
does pretend. She throws on a little bit of that black voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
And then she always said, oh, I came from a poor, humble, whatever,
Yeah.
a black woman, and I succeeded in America, and my mama worked hard, and slavery had. She always acted as though she was this poor, innocent black girl that went through hard time slavery in America.
I know it. And her father was like a university professor. Her
Yeah.
mother was a research scientist.
Yeah.
Like she did okay.
She did, man.
I don't think she came from like, and her ancestor, great grandfather, I think, was a major slave owner in Jamaica.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Hamilton Brown, I think his name was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A slave owner.
Yeah, she's got that white guilt, even though she's not.
I was really surprised that Mike Pence won because I had never seen him speak a lot, and I just thought he was going to be one of those little nice Christians.
Yeah.
And
I was worried about that too.
yeah, I thought she's going to run all over him.
I love Mike Pence. I've seen him do speeches.
He's
And
amazing.
he's also always very noble. He's always
Yeah.
got this sort of integrity
Yeah.
to him. So I knew he'd come across well. I just didn't know if he'd come across as too boring. But he put the hammer down a couple of times.
He did, man.
My favorite moment, he goes, you know, your whole plan for dealing with coronavirus looks a lot like our plan.
Yeah, I know.
He's like, it looks like, what was the word? You know, when you're copying somebody else's.
What's that word?
Oh, thank you.
Plagiarism.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, it looks a lot like plagiarism. I think that's something that
He was like stunned when he
Joe
said
Biden knows a little bit about. You know,
Yeah, amazing.
I love that moment.
I'm sure Pence's wife went home and made a nice dinner for him. It was,
He seems like he's got a good family. Yeah.
Are you afraid to speak up to black people, disagree with them? And
You know what's really funny is, I guess because I grew up in Oregon where there isn't a lot of black people,
Yeah.
but the black people that do exist, like that I would go to school with, they're not any culturally different than me. So it wasn't like I was in a city where there was a sort of division
Right.
culturally between the black and the white people.
Yeah.
Black people and white people were essentially the same where I was from. And I never really got on board with the African American thing.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, you got to say African American.
Yeah, no,
I'm like,
we're
that's
a
too many
mess.
syllables. Black is good.
That's
like I'm
right.
white, you're black. We're good. We're
That's
both good.
right.
It's about respect. It's not about the words that you use. It's stupid. So I remember once. This is probably like in 2005 or something. I was in a public place, and I said the word black about somebody, and this black guy turns around and he goes. He was from France. He goes, oh, you must have a black friends. Random guy, I didn't know the guy. We eventually became friends, but I go, why you say that? He goes, because you do not say African American. You say black, like a black person. And he made a really good point, which I hadn't thought about. He goes, no black people say African American. He goes, black people say black.
Yeah.
White people say African American.
amazing.
I thought, you know, that's really true.
Yeah.
No, you need to be able to criticize everybody.
Everybody.
It's disrespectful not to.
Yeah.
If I'm going to say, oh, you're too delicate, Jesse Lee Peterson, for me to be able to criticize anything about you.
Yeah.
To me, that's disrespectful.
It is, man. It made me sick.
I don't want to see any black kid growing up in a situation that's bad because white people were afraid to criticize the culture that he's
Yeah.
grown up in. You know, you got to be able to point to problems
do,
with
man.
every
You gotta
group and
deal
say,
with it.
let's fix this. You know,
That's right.
Within every group, you got good people and you got bad people, and you want to help the good people and you want to kind of deal with the bad people.
Yeah.
That's with white culture. That's with black culture. That's with Hispanics. Everybody.
So
And to not recognize that to me is just tragic.
So dealing with black people in L.A. is different than dealing with black people in Oregon. What part
Yeah.
of Oregon are you from?
I'm from Salem, which is
Oh,
the
yeah.
capital city, but it's a relatively small
Yeah,
city.
I've been there. I lived in Grants Pass for a while.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had relatives in Grants Pass.
Yeah, and
beautiful
so I
place.
know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So do you deal with the blacks in L.A. too?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm friends with like Major Williams. You know Major Williams probably. He's running for, I think he's running for governor.
out of Pasadena.
Yeah, he's out of
absolutely.
Pasadena. He was running
Yeah.
for, and yeah, I used
those
to
are not
park
real
cars.
black people.
I used to park cars. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's not real black people. In this, yeah, he's really black. He's really
No,
black.
he is. I know him.
I have another good friend who's from Jamaica, though, so he's not really black in the sense that he's not American black.
Who is that?
Oh, what the hell?
What's his name? Oh, you said from Jamaica.
He's from
Oh,
Jamaica.
okay.
Jamaica. And he's
Have
one of my
you
best
ever-
friends. I can't think of his name.
Have you ever dated a black woman?
I have not, but I hate that question.
Why?
And I'll tell you why. Have you ever dated an old Asian guy?
Not yet.
Then you must be racist.
I am. Especially in that.
But see, because people ask
I
that
discriminate.
as if because I did. Okay, for the record, I would date a black girl. I've met many very stunningly beautiful, amazing black women.
Really? Where?
You look-
Joel and I want to go over there.
But here's the thing: not every white guy would, right? And not
Right.
every black guy would date white girls, and not every Asian guy would date Hispanics. You know, different people have different tastes. And it's not that they.
That's true.
It's not that they're necessarily exclusive. It's just that that's not their type. You
That's
know?
right.
And I respect that. You know,
too.
I respect taste.
Yeah.
And so if somebody doesn't want to date a black girl, you know, that might just be their preference.
That's right.
That does not indicate racism. I don't
At
want
all.
to. I also don't want to date old Asian dudes.
That's right. And the reason I ask you that because normally white people don't speak up to black people. They're afraid
Right.
to.
Yeah, no.
And
That's
so-
tragic. That's the worst thing.
And then the white guys who are married to black or dating black girls, they'll get beat up by the black woman. And they're like, beta.
I have a few white friends that are married to black women.
Oh, man. You pray for them,
but
huh?
they're very good women. They're very good people.
No such thing.
Jesse, come on, man. You're going to get us in trouble here. No, they're really good people.
Well,
Really
those
good
guys
people.
must really be licking boots.
No, these women are very, very good people.
I want to interview them.
Yeah, I can give you the name of one of them. My buddy Jason, he's in Miami. His wife, I think she's also Jamaican.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Jamaica even worse.
No, she's a fantastic person. Yeah, she's great.
You're not married to her.
She's Caribbean. I don't know if she's from Jamaica. I have to ask him. But.
The reason I asked is because you exposed Black Lives Matter, and in one of your recent video, most people, especially white people, are afraid to deal with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And you exposed who is behind them and
Yes.
all that good
Yeah.
stuff. Tell us a little bit about that. If
Well,
you remember it.
Yeah, I mean, they're a Marxist organization.
Absolutely, man.
There's a guy named Eric Mann who's part of the Weather Underground, right? Weather Underground was a terrorist group in like the 60s.
Yeah.
They opposed Vietnam, but they also basically just called white people pigs, and they were white, which is really funny. There's a bunch of white people, you know.
One of the guys who got friends with Obama or something, right? When he first started out.
Yeah, Bill Ayers had some kind of an
Bill Ayers.
association with Obama. Bill Ayers is like the head of the Weather Underground.
Yeah.
But I don't know how well connected they ever were. They just both were like in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
I don't actually think that Obama had any kind of close connection with Weather Underground. That was just kind of one of those weird controversies that come out, you know, when somebody finds an association, they think, oh, maybe there's something there. I'm not sure that was a really significant.
If I remember correctly, Sean Hannity from Fox, I think when Obama first started running, he exposed a lot of that.
Sean Hannity's great, man. He
Yeah,
exposed
he's
a lot of
amazing.
good stuff.
Yeah.
But this actually is a real connection. So the head of Black Lives Matter is named Patrice Kohls. I'm sure you've heard of her.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've had her on my show.
oh, have you really?
She put her tail between her legs and ran.
Oh yeah, I can
What-
imagine facing you. Yeah. people don't expect real arguments from the
Right.
right
Yeah.
because there's two. Everybody should know this. There's two conservative philosophies. There's the real conservative philosophy that we share
Yeah.
based on Christian values, and then there is the straw man political philosophy of the right, which is what the left tells all of their, what like the left-wing media
Yeah.
will tell their viewers.
Yeah.
This is what the right believes, and it's just a complete fabrication. Everything's wrong. So if you grow up with this mentality that this is what the right believes, and somebody on the right gives you the real stuff,
Yeah.
you're not prepared for that.
That's
and that's why I
right.
think a lot of times you kind of throw people off their game.
It
Every
is.
time I watch you, you're interviewing
Amazing.
people. Yeah.
And so, who was this guy behind her? Behind Black Lives
So the
Matter?
guy's name is Eric Mann. He was part of the Weather Underground, and he has this very radical philosophy. In 1926 or something, 1922, something like that. In the 1920s, there was a group from the USSR. They had this meeting called Comintern, Communist International. The idea was to spread communism throughout the world, not through war, but just through convincing people, sending people into America to infiltrate in other places.
Right.
And what they figured out was in America we don't have a class hierarchy that is stratified enough. So the best way, they thought, a good way to get into America and to divide the country and create turmoil, because the Marxist philosophy is always revolution. You want the people to be so suffering that there's some kind of revolution that like destroys the country, and then out of that emerges a new Marxist state, right? Because that's what happened with Russia with the
Yeah.
Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah.
And so with America, they knew they couldn't do it with a class structure like they did in Russia. So they thought, well, what we can do is we can divide it by race, because there's some racial tension already, because obviously we
Yeah.
come out of slavery. And
I
everything.
totally agree, man.
So they were like, okay, let's piss off the black people, make them hate the white people, create a lot of tension, and then maybe there'll be like a race war. So they wanted to sort of devastate the country using a race war. And that has been the Marxist philosophy ever since that plan emerged. Then you have obviously the Germans that came over, infiltrated the universities, and the universities became very Marxist, and all of these different Marxist groups eventually fed off of each other and created what we now see as like Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Yeah.
And this woman, Patrice Kohls, her mentor was this guy Eric Mann, part of the Weather Underground, and their philosophy was, terrorism, create turmoil, burn stuff down, and now that is obviously the methods of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And so she got all that from them. So this guy, this white guy, trained the woman who created Black Lives Matter. So it essentially comes out of that. It comes out of like a white tradition. Black Lives Matter doesn't really come from like a grassroots effort out of the black community.
Amazing. They admitted that they were Marxist. She
admitted that, right?
Yeah.
That's what kind of led me down this trail.
They literally admitted. I was surprised that they said it out loud.
It's changed. It used to be that this was all quiet.
Yeah.
But that's old school left.
Yeah.
New school left is shout it out loud. Be proud of it. Be proud of all these crazy ideas.
Why are so many people afraid of them?
I think it's because it's a new thing. I think it's a new thing.
Oh,
I think for a long time, people didn't admit their intentions, right? Let me tell you what I think the biggest problem with the black community is in America.
Yes.
The biggest problem that black people have in America, the reason why I think that you have a lot of poor black Americans, right? What they say disproportionately poor, is that it's common in the black community to be racist against white people. And this is encouraged.
That's right. If you're not, you get in trouble with the black for not being racist.
And you get in trouble with white leftists. That's the really crazy thing.
Sure
White
is.
leftists encourage black people in America.
Yeah.
I don't blame the black community. I don't blame all these black people that are racist against white people. They have been encouraged for decades to be racist against white people. And this really hurts black people.
Yeah.
And so I try to talk about this on my show. I don't reach a lot of leftists on my show, but I would like to be able to. Because I think if we could fix that and things like that, then we could actually get along a lot better and be happy.
Absolutely.
But people are definitely convinced that black people have a right to hate white people, that white people are guilty of all this stuff, even though you might not be racist, but other white people that looked like you 100 years ago were, therefore you're bad also.
Amazing.
And people believe all this stuff, and so then we've been kind of conditioned that anytime anybody takes a position that's like pro-black people and anti-white people, that they're good somehow.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I think you should be pro-everybody.
That's right.
Be pro-good people, and be anti-bad people. Don't be pro-black, pro-white, whatever. That's silly.
What would it take to stop Black Lives Matter?
I think just education. I think they're stopping themselves, right? Because the more aggressive these groups become, the more people recognize this is not a good organization. And the more people know they're Marxist, the more people know they're radical. And this stuff all will eventually, because they're so, like you said, they're very proud of it. They talk about it. So people are going to figure out who they are, what their actual motivations and intentions are. They're seeing the results. You can't see somebody like murder somebody in the street or burn down a building and think, people do recognize it, and eventually people are waking up. I mean, you saw the NBA had like the worst ever, ratings. Nobody's watching the NBA anymore.
They should not watch that while they're doing that. I had this woman callers on my show, and I asked her about capitalism, and she freaked out and ran.
It is weird that these people they don't recognize the historical, what's happened historically with Marxism, that it's so devastating.
What do you think about all this stuff they're teaching white people and children about white privilege? White people are the scum of the earth.
White privilege.
You are racist simply because you're white.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That is a rough thing to teach people.
How do you deal with that?
I don't know, because look, if you live a life where you're a white person and you're lower middle class or poor, like I grew up pretty poor. Like all my clothes were from Goodwill.
I thought you were white privilege.
Yeah, I thought so too. No, my parents got everything. It's funny, I'll see these memes from Mexican culture, like from my Mexican friends. They'll put up like, this was a hot dog bun, a hamburger bun, a this, a that, and it's just a piece of white bread,
Right.
And I'm like, that was my family, and I relate to this sort of like Mexican culture of these like jokes about being poor and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, that was my life growing up. And I'll tell you what, like, I was privileged though. I consider myself privileged but I consider myself privileged because I'm an American,
Yep.
not because I'm white.
That's right.
If you look at like the poorest, I think the poorest 20% of Americans actually use more goods and services than like the average European, which is another first world region, another developed region of the world. And it's bizarre how rich we are. We have no gratitude for that. We have no real perspective because people just don't suffer enough.
That's right.
And there's no real way to inject that kind of experience into somebody's brain. Like if you grow up as privileged as we grow up here in America, even if we're not rich,
That's right.
people just don't recognize how much suffering they could be experiencing, and so they think, oh, this is a little bit unfair for this. And I always say this when people talk about how black people are oppressed historically in America. I agree that this has happened, of course. I mean, we all recognize that.
I don't.
Okay. I'll debate you on that.
I don't recognize it.
But here's my balance.
I grew up on, as you know, I guess you know,
Yeah.
I grew up on a plantation under the Jim Crow laws. I remember for colors on and all that. I never thought of black people as being oppressed.
At that time, you felt like
No one
people
ever
were happy
said
and-
it. Black people were decent. They were getting married. No children out of wedlock. Very few. If a black woman got pregnant out of wedlock, she would go into hiding.
But they were poor.
I didn't think of it as poor.
But you see, you know
But I
that,
grew up in a
that's
tin
really,
house,
That's an amazing perspective.
outdoors toilet, worked the cotton field. Have you ever worked the cotton field?
No, I've worked strawberries, and what were the other things? Strawberries and a couple other vegetables and
Well, I
stuff.
gotta take you to
Mainly
Alabama.
strawberries. Strawberries is tough. I don't like picking strawberries. We pick strawberries in
But
Oregon.
I didn't. The whole point is there was nothing about being poor
No.
or white people holding us back. No conversation like that at all.
You know what I call that? I call that dignified poor. Because I see this in Eastern Europe. If you ever go to Eastern Europe, you'll see people in like the towns. It's just all dirt roads.
Yeah.
All like kind of crappy little houses and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go into the house of like an old Bulgarian lady, for instance, right? Everything is meticulous.
Yeah.
She's got like an old rag that she's used
That's
for 10
right.
years, but it's perfectly folded. She takes care of all of her stuff.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, right? She's like dignified. She's a very dignified person.
Yes.
She's got integrity, even though she doesn't have maybe a lot of
That
money.
is so true, man.
And I love that. I love to see somebody like that because I have so much more respect for them than I have for the kid that just plays PlayStation all day in his parents' basement and his place looks like hell.
know.
He grew up with everything and he
Yeah.
has no respect. And granted, we're
absolutely
not as
right.
clean as the women, but
Right.
you know.
So was I poor?
What's that?
Was I poor growing up?
I don't know.
Because I lived in that environment. A little tin roof house.
Well, financially
outdoors
maybe.
bathroom.
Financially maybe.
I never went hungry.
But you weren't
We-
poor in
we worked
spirit.
in
You weren't poor in your
plantation.
head.
Right.
And I think that there's a big difference there, with people.
It
With-
is.
If you're homeless, see, a lot of these homeless, they choose to be homeless. They don't want to work.
Right, you're right.
But they have access to a lot of resources.
Yeah.
They may have more access to resources than you do.
Too
I mean,
much.
look at it like this. If you have an iPhone or you have a smartphone, you have access to more entertainment than the kings of 200 or 300 years ago.
That's right.
You are wealthier than almost anyone in history, even if you're like a homeless person with a cell phone.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
It
It's a
is.
bizarre time we live in. We're so wealthy. We don't even.
But I never knew I was poor.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even, even when I look back on it, I don't think of it as being poor.
Yeah.
And poor compared to what? You know what I'm saying? My family bought land. My grandfather worked the plantation.
Yeah.
And I just never thought of it as being poor.
Yeah. Well, there's clearly no way to get yourself out of that situation. I mean, you're obviously still in terrible shape.
That's right. Hungry.
You're hungry.
The most hated men on this earth, on this side of heaven, are the straight, white, conservative
Yeah.
Christian men. They are hated.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's like racism's okay again.
That's right. And so, does that bother you at all to walk around as
yeah.
a white man knowing that you are hated, especially now since you can be attacked at any point and
Yeah, I
knowing
mean,
you're
this
hated?
guy got shot in the head in Portland
Yeah.
for being with the wrong group. you
Yeah.
know? I mean, maybe you could say that was more politically motivated, but he probably wouldn't have got shot if he was black.
And so, do you walk around with any fear, or do you look around? Or?
I don't know about fear. A little bit, yeah. I mean, if I'm in downtown, especially if I'm with Valeria. If I'm with Valeria, she'll get yelled at a lot. If she's alone, like she stopped walking around downtown alone.
I bet.
Because in downtown, there's a lot of poor people. They're mostly black, homeless. And they'll yell at her like rich white girl. She
Really?
gets a lot of harassment. I don't get as much harassment because even though I'm I don't look that tough.
Right.
As a guy, there's always this thought in people's heads like, well, if I cause too much trouble, I might get my nose broken.
Yeah.
You know, so guys, we don't, even if we're feeling a little rambunctious, we do keep our mouths shut a little bit if it's another guy. But if the guy seems very weak, you know, you can maybe harass him. But
Yeah. What's important to you?
in the world?
To you, period. What's important to you?
You know what? I'll tell you what's important to me. I want people to be happy and respected and respectful. And it's very strange. When you grow up, you want things to be exciting. You want to have adventures. You know, and I still like that. I still want to go traveling. I still want to experience new cultures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But after you do some exciting things, you meet some girls, you go on some trips, you have kind of an exciting life a little bit, you get that out of your system, you do recognize what's important in life. And what's important in life are the sort of pleasant things, the good as opposed to the evil. When you live through traumas and you see horrible things happen to people, you think there needs to be a balance between having an exciting, fun life and having a life in which there is some degree of, you know, the avoidance of trauma and tragedy.
Yeah.
And that seems to me, that allowed me to recognize the things about, say, the Christian faith that were so valuable.
Right.
Because when you're a kid, you don't really care that much about church and stuff. You think church is boring.
Yes.
But you don't know why, you know, these teachings are so valuable until you get a little bit older. Like the Sermon on the Mount, to me, is like my favorite Christian teaching.
Yeah.
All the stuff within the Sermon on the Mount. And this idea that, to me, all that stuff is to make you happy in your own mind with your own self and be confident. I always say that people need, in order to be confident, you've got to recognize your shortcomings, which most people, I think, or a lot of people do. But you've also got to recognize your value.
Yeah.
And people tend to fall into two camps. Either people that just recognize their value and don't think about their shortcomings, I'm awesome. Or people who think, oh, I'm the worst, and they just look at their shortcomings.
Yeah.
And to be a confident person in the world, to go out and be successful and have great friends and have a happy life and all this stuff, you really have to have a balance of both, what the Swedes call lagom, which is like balance or being measured. And so you do have to have a balance between what's exciting in life and fun. And I think we all kind of yearn for that a little bit, which I always say traveling is the best way to do that. You got to experience different cultures, you got to meet different people, have respect for everybody, and have, but then also try to maintain some sense of security, which becomes more important to you when you love somebody and you have people in your life.
Would you, should men and women who are not married have sex out of wedlock?
Oh, I think definitely not. But here's the problem with that. That's not a realistic expectation anymore, I don't think.
What do you mean? Would you ever have sex out of wedlock?
It's a very personal question, Jesse.
Because you're a Christian, right?
Well, I'll tell you something, Jesse. I'll
You
tell you a
just said you were
secret that not a
Christian.
lot of people know. You ready for this?
What?
I'm married. I got married.
You are married?
This woman outside here is my wife.
Oh, that's your wife out there?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like someone maybe working with you.
My assistant, yeah. She looks very young.
Oh,
She's
okay.
very young. And
But
that's
you
why,
would never have sex out of wedlock. That's why you got
No.
married?
Right. Well, but okay. Historically, I have not been a perfect Christian man.
What you been?
I've been an imperfect Christian man.
Like how?
You know, I've had girlfriends.
Ooh.
Yeah. I've had
But
some
you weren't
girlfriends.
having sex with them.
Hi, Mom. So anyway, let's get back to Antifa. Look, you know, you're a guy, you live in LA, you live in New York, you're traveling, you meet girls. You know, things happen that maybe you don't expect to happen. This is uncomfortable. This is kind of uncomfortable. But look, here's my philosophy about sex outside of marriage kind of thing. I don't know how does the Bible talk about this a lot? It's only like a little bit, they're kind of hinted at here and there. I think for the most part, people kind of get fixated on this because of cultural norms. In the Victorian era, women were very protected, right? Actually, in Muslim cultures, a lot women are protected this way. Right? It's this conservative idea that we need to protect and preserve the purity of women.
Right.
And I really actually like that.
Yeah.
And the reason I like that is because in my experience, and this is completely a secular sort of just, my perspective, like what I've seen, my experience in life.
Right.
Men, if you're going to sleep with a woman, most of the time, unless you really love her or care about her, you're done with her. right? You're done.
Right.
You're like, okay, mission accomplished,
Yeah.
I'm out.
That's right.
Women have the opposite effect a lot of times.
Yeah.
Women, once they get the guy in bed, they're like, I'm in love.
Yeah.
That's it. It's over. I'm going to marry this guy.
And the man,
you
as
know?
soon as he finished, he's smoking cigarette and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And she's
yeah.
like, hold me.
Yeah. I got to get up in the morning. I'm out of here. So you got this sort of like very different situation where not almost every time, but a lot of the time, a significant number of the time, if a guy and a girl don't know each other, meet, hook up, spend the night together, the guy leaves the next day, never calls her back, you've got like a mini trauma there.
Absolutely.
Especially if the girl's very innocent, especially if she's
absolutely.
very young.
Yeah.
Then you've got a situation where the girl is devastated, and that she might be traumatized for years after that because of this experience. And this has become just common now. This is just now the normal. Like this happens just like every woman now.
Yeah.
And I think this is terrible. I think that we should discourage women from doing this without,
Absolutely.
Because I do think it
I
hurts
tell
the
women to
culture
draw
and
a
hurts
line.
women.
Yeah, I tell them to draw a line, and don't let the guy cross that line.
And a lot of these women who go out and they scream about how women need to be able to be like men and just have sex with whomever they want and
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter and this kind of thing. What you find is when these women tell the stories about their own lives, they've had some kind of like deeply traumatic sexual experience.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like when they're very promiscuous and they're having sex with like 100 guys or something, it's often because they're trying to escape that first traumatic experience, that
They're
earlier
looking for
traumatic
father's
experience.
love. So let me ask.
That too.
You were a slut maker before you got married?
No, I wouldn't say that. Jeez. That is a hell of a way to put it. A slut maker. Good Lord. I was.
Did you know that men who have sex before marriage are slut makers, and women who have sex are sluts?
Okay. There's two kinds of guys who date a lot of women.
Right. Did you date a lot? You look like a guy.
I
that
was.
had a
I
lot
used
of
to be
women.
very skinny. I used to be very fit.
Right.
I got fat because I was doing YouTube and
And you got married.
And I got married. Yeah, that's true. Actually, that messed me up as well.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I didn't know you were married.
She's got a very good metabolism. She's Russian.
Oh, okay.
So she can eat just like pancakes every morning. She's good.
Is she white?
Yeah, she's Russian.
So make some white babies, right? We need white babies.
They will be white,
A
incidentally.
truckload of white babies.
Okay, we'll have a truck.
Because white people come
I
in
don't know if
minority.
she's going to agree to that.
No, tell her to make. We need white babies.
Okay.
Because
all right.
white people come in the minority, and
I've
the
heard
color
this.
people are taking over. You don't want that to happen.
Well, I'll tell you what. I do think that this is sort of like the concern of the white nationalists. Right?
My concern too.
And I think it's a legitimate concern.
Because you hate it.
You hate what?
They hate white people. And
Some-
so they're
some
going to
do.
destroy the nation.
Yeah, certainly if you had racists become, people who are racist against white people take power in America, that would obviously be a significant
It's going to
problem.
happen.
But I
It's
don't
gonna
know, man.
become
I
like
think
South
of this stuff
Africa.
as a lot more cultural than you do. You seem to like tie race and culture together too much. I don't actually do that. I don't think that's necessary.
I just see a bunch of angry black people
Well, some are,
who
for
are
sure,
blaming
yeah.
white folks.
Your audio
and-
guy seems like a nice dude.
And they're doing, because he's 30% white.
Oh, is it? All black people in America are 30%. 20% is the average.
Well, then you need to tell them.
Yeah, it's true. You're not black.
That's right.
You're
But I
just
wanna-
like me, guys. Sorry.
Because of time, I want to ask this. So before you got married, you were a slut maker.
Okay, sure.
I'm asking.
I suppose you could say that, yeah. I don't know if I would characterize it that way, but
And
let's
did
go
you
for it.
know that the women that you were having sex with were sluts?
No, I don't actually agree with this.
Amber Rose would disagree with you.
Yeah.
You know who she is?
No.
Amber Rose.
No. Oh, Amber Rose. Yeah,
She's
yeah.
the one that do the slut make walk thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, she said that she's proud to be a slut. Ain't nothing wrong with being a slut.
I probably wouldn't have dated her.
Oh, you wouldn't?
Given the opportunity, I'm not sure if I would have.
Yeah.
I don't know any girl who says I'm proud of being a
I know.
slut.
Thank you for letting me know, huh? I don't want you there.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm good. We're good.
That's right.
Maybe if I'm really drunk.
So should a male, when you start dating, should you wait until you get married to have sex?
As a man,
Men and women who date.
I don't think it really matters for men that much. I think the reason that you would avoid, and I've done this many times, many, I would say the majority of the women that I've met in my life that I had the opportunity to sleep with, I did not sleep with.
Right on.
And the reason is because it's a respect thing, right? I want to have respect for women. I don't want to if I know, for instance, I'm just going to get up the next morning and never probably call them again, to me, that's a bit rough. You know, that's like I avoid that kind of interaction. But growing up, you know, I don't know, what was it like for you when you were a kid, when you were real little, like when you were like 11, 12,
Right.
you think this girl's cute or whatever.
Right.
Girls are a little bit scary. You know, I
Nowadays,
I think
when you're growing up, period.
yeah, when you're like a little
yeah,
kid.
you're right. I know what you
Women
mean.
are a little scary. So there
Yeah.
is a point in your life as a man when you have to develop the ability to approach women and to convince them to like you, right? To go out with you, to kiss you, whatever, these kinds of
Right.
things. And I think that if you, as a kid, if you become very good at that, if you're like, oh, I can get girls, right? It's kind of a sense of pride with guys.
Yeah.
We like that. And that eventually translates, at least with I think most guys, at least today, in if you can get girls to sleep with you, that's sort of like the ultimate, you know, you're conquering, you're the hunter, right? And I was kind of like that a little bit. I was a little bit more like a hunter. I like James Bond. I like that whole idea. So culturally, I think that there is this sort of infection that we get that like
Well, I
this
always
makes
tell
you
guys
cool.
to wait until you get married because women are sex dealers and men are sex addicts.
Yeah.
And the moment you have sex with her, you lose consciousness of what you're dealing with, and you find yourself subject to her, and it become
Yeah.
a mama and boy relationship. And then if you have to break up, it's harder to break up because you're addicted to the sex.
I don't
which
think
awaken the
that's
emotion.
that's not true for me ever. That
How
was
long you
never
been
true
married?
for me. 2 years?
Keep living.
Keep living? It's not quite 2 years, sweetheart. It was January of last year,
Oh,
so it was like a year and a half.
I give you another year.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll be all right.
I got to ask you this, and I wanted to ask earlier. You talked about black women, and you said that black women are now calling
Calling themselves
queens. And,
Have you noticed this? Some people are like, oh, this
I
has been
have.
going on for a long time, but
Yeah.
it's only becoming sort of mainstream now.
Yeah.
It's only something that
they
we,
call themselves queen. I'm like, what the?
as a matter of course.
Yeah.
You know, not as just like for a specific reason or specific.
Right.
It's like just generally like I'm a queen. It's very weird.
I'm like, I can think of many names to call you. Queen is not one.
Well, some people were like, she looks like a drag queen, or somebody was like, she looks like maybe she was a welfare queen.
That's
but-
right. Is that due
So
to
people are making jokes
insecurity?
about it, but huh?
Is that due to low self-esteem or insecurity or
I
something?
think so. There isn't, you know, I've been trying to psychologically analyze why so many black people are racist against white people generally. And a lot of it has to do with education. You know, if like you went to my school when I was a kid, they would have said racism is evil, racism is bad. But I think if you go to a lot of schools that are predominantly black schools, you probably won't hear that. What I think you hear instead is, you know, what we're taught about white people when I went to school was white people were slave owners historically. White people were bad people, essentially. I think you probably get the same thing in the black schools without, on top of that, saying, but you should respect white culture, you should respect white people. You know, white people essentially invented everything. That's the thing I say that's probably the most controversial.
They
But it's
did,
true.
though.
White culture has been fantastic for the whole world.
Absolutely.
And there's no gratitude for that. There's
That's
only
right.
blame. And I was trying to say earlier, the way I tend to look at historical inequities or historical oppression, which you don't even agree, really, you don't acknowledge as much, but I do acknowledge it, but I say, look at this on balance. How many white men, how many white women fought for the rights of black people, fought to help black people, gave money to charities that supported black people? We talk about reparations sometimes. There's been an enormous amount of reparations.
Too much.
You know, it's arguable how much, but it's like millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's like how much until we get to a point where we're like, okay, to me it's just like, yeah, there's been some bad white people. Okay,
They're
of course.
bad. Yeah.
Of course.
They're bad. Any culture.
Exactly. But there's some great white people too.
Yeah.
And the same thing to say, okay, well, white people were slave owners, therefore all white people are bad. That's like saying, oh, some black guys rob liquor stores, so all black people are bad. I mean, it's all
insane.
racism. It's terrible, and it makes the culture worse for everyone.
I have proven there's no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism.
There's no such thing.
Debbie-dadism, anti-Semitism, or white supremacism. No isms.
No isms.
It's all made up. Do you know that when I was growing up, I never heard the word racism at all?
It wasn't a thing until like the 50s.
It was started with the civil rights movement, which should have never happened.
Right.
The worst thing that ever happened to black people is the civil rights movement.
I haven't heard you say this before. What is it? I don't understand that.
Because prior to the civil rights movement, black people thought for themselves, they did for themselves, They treated all people the way that they would like to be treated. They knew that, in Alabama, we knew that the Jim Crow law was from the Democratic Party because the Democrats didn't want blacks to be a part of it.
Well, I
and
have
so
learned
that-
recently that a lot of the civil rights movement was infiltrated by these Marxists.
Absolutely. We were Republicans prior to the civil rights movement, but what happened was the civil rights movement started and the leaders of the civil rights movement made a deal with the Democratic Party. We'll let you have the blacks for your votes if you let us be over them, control them. And so they became the leaders, and it's just been downhill.
So you look at it as almost sort of as a sinister conspiracy between certain kinds of nefarious black leaders.
Well, 100%.
Yeah. But Martin Luther King, you respect Martin Luther King.
I'm wondering about him now, too, because
you do?
unless...
Come on,
he-
everybody loves Martin Luther King. We all
unless-
love Martin Luther King.
And I used to, too, until I looked into it more. I'm not sure if he didn't know what was happening. Maybe once he died and Jackson and those guys took over the movement, maybe that's when a lot of that happened. But
Well, let's.
oh
Jesse,
no, it didn't. I just
Jesse,
realized.
let's be optimistic.
I just realized he helped sign that Johnson bill for welfare.
Yeah.
So I'm a little shaky about him.
Yeah, but
too.
he probably didn't know exactly all the implications of that. He's
yeah,
just trying to
because
help
he
out
was
his
black
community.
and slow. You may be
Let's.
right.
He was a very smart guy. Let's have a little bit of optimism here, Jesse. Let's agree that we like Martin Luther King Jr.
All right.
All right. Reluctantly. Reluctantly.
Well, let me just say this.
Good Lord.
It's about character. Either you
Yeah,
love
but I think
what's
he
right.
does have a lot of
No,
good
it's about the blacks today.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It has nothing to do with all the isms.
Yeah.
It's either right or wrong, good or evil, and most black people have no character. And they're blaming white folks. They're taught in the homes, the schools, and all that. But I got to ask you this.
I think a lot of people don't have character in every
Especially
group right
today's
now.
society.
Yeah, it's pretty
But
awful.
black people have not had to be responsible for the lack of character over the last 70 years. They've been blaming it on whites. They've been
That is just in a practical
They've been
sense.
fighting.
That is a terrible situation.
Yeah. So I got to ask you this. Number one, are you the head of your wife?
You mean the head of like the household?
No, the head of your wife.
I haven't heard that expression. I assume you mean, am I the dominant one in the relationship?
Are you a Christian, right?
Yeah.
And so Christians should know that terminology.
I do,
So,
but I don't know exactly quite how you're phrasing it. But I think yes is the answer. That
You think you are?
well, if I were to interpret your question the way I think it needs to be interpreted, yeah, I think I'm more dominant for sure. Yeah.
So
but
you're
I'm respectful though. I like her to be able to make her own decisions.
So, but you're the head of your wife.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a decision that needs to be made between us.
So you're the head of your wife.
Okay, yeah, sure. I haven't heard this term. It's hard for me to answer a question. I don't quite.
What do you do when you wake up in the morning? You smiling, you had a good sleep,
Yeah.
and then you wake up and she's looking at you all mad about nothing. What are you dreaming about?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that kind of hell?
It's a little bit different between us. That doesn't. There is an occasion when she will say something and it'll seem disrespectful to me.
Yes.
So I will say, you're not allowed to speak to me like that.
Right on.
But the thing is, I also feel like this is, to some degree, it has to be mutual. You have to have respect for your wife as well as she has to have respect for you.
Right.
So if there is an instance in which I am inappropriately disrespectful and she points that out, I feel like it's my responsibility to
Do
apologize.
you have anger?
Not anymore, really. When I was a kid, I really did. I really was. I'm part Scottish. My mother's father, my grandfather, is from was Scottish. His parents were from Scotland. And there are some fiery people, Scottish people.
I heard that before.
So I had a lot of anger as a kid. I used to have a very strong, angry temper. And I used to blow up and get very angry at people.
So
and
do
fight
you have
all that.
anger now?
No, I'm good. I think I'm good now.
You have no anger?
Not really.
Do you have anger?
Okay, I feel like you're getting somewhere and I'm not following.
Do you have anger? Do you have anger?
I suppose somewhere deep down there's a Hulk waiting to come out, but I don't get angry really anymore.
Do you have anger?
Can you explain what you're trying to ask me?
No, that's it. I'm just asking one little simple question.
Yeah, but I don't
Do
understand
you
the
have
question.
anger?
I don't understand the question.
What you don't understand about it?
I don't understand what you're trying to ask me. I suppose everybody has some anger.
I'm asking you though. Do you have anger?
Not really.
What is that? You don't ever get angry?
Not so much anymore. I don't really. I mean, I suppose I get frustrated.
Do you get angry at all?
I'll tell you what I do get. I'll tell you yes. Okay, yes, I do. And I'll tell you why I get angry.
Why?
Occasionally. The thing that made me the most angry was when, gosh, I wish I could remember his name. When that kid, he was like a member of not the Proud Boys.
Antifa.
No, Portland Prayer something.
Oh, the guy that was
Shot in Portland. Shot in the head. That made me genuinely angry.
Oh, okay.
You know what's really frustrating about those situations, and this is why I don't really, this is the one thing I really hate about my job, is that you have to read about things that are utterly infuriating, and you can't do anything about them.
Yeah.
Like, what can I do about it? I
That's
can't do
right.
anything. It drives you crazy. Or the grooming gangs in the UK. Do you know about this? This went on for like decades. They were like essentially manipulating white girls specifically into becoming prostitutes in the UK. Thousands of, and they were specifically targeting white English girls, as these Muslim gangs. And it's just very much a cultural difference that the UK police were just ignoring, and the UK government was just ignoring, and they're trying to get people not to talk about it.
I would love to go on and on. We're so out of time, but
Yeah.
I got to finish up with this little show.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, we're so out of time.
Yeah, that's the stuff
So
I
do
get
you
mad
have
about.
anger?
Well, you've convinced me that I do, yeah.
I just asked the question. I didn't say you did or you didn't.
Yeah, you're getting me to think about certain things.
Did
In
you
my
know
personal
that-
life, not so much, but yeah, there's certain things that make me mad.
Did
so.
you know that it's abnormal for a man to have anger? It's not his normal state.
I don't agree with that.
And any man that has anger is a woman.
I don't agree with that. Because I'll tell you what, because we used to have to hunt.
But we need to be, well, I hunted too, but I wasn't angry about hunting.
No, but think about it like this. If
I did it
you
for-
are facing off against a wild beast and you have that fight or flight response, sometimes you got to be able to take that thing
But
down.
you can run without being angry.
Yeah, but you can't
Or
fight
you
without
can take
being
it
angry.
down without being angry. So I got to ask, white people built the greatest country on this side of heaven, America.
Yeah,
And if it
more or
wasn't
less.
for white people, there would be no America.
Yeah.
Did they make a mistake by letting the colors in?
No, come on. I think they made a mistake by enslaving people. I think that was terrible. But I'll tell you what.
Why don't they stand up for the country that they created and they invited others in? Why are white people? Because it's going to be South
I'll tell you what, I
Africa
actually
here.
think that white people have the right perspective, the correct perspective, when it comes to racial stuff, which I think,
No such thing
well, no such thing as what?
as racism.
Okay, I'm saying racial
Oh,
stuff.
okay, I got you.
Which is that you really should respect people on an individual level.
Right. Treat everybody the way you like to be treated.
Yeah, individually.
Yeah.
It's this a Christian concept, right? This idea of, oh, this group is bad because they're of that type, or they come from that place, or they are that color, or whatever. That's not the right way of looking at things.
Was Christianity weak at some point? Because of Christianity that white people came here and they built the country. Did they get weak at some point? And that's
No,
why
I
they
think
were-
that the twisting of Christian philosophies makes people weak.
Okay.
So like you take something that is a good, strong Christian value, like turn the other cheek or love your neighbor, love your enemy, and you twist it to this idea that if you don't like black people more than white people, you're evil.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's such a bizarre distortion of the ethic. And
What's a man?
what is a man?
Yes.
I think that is a human being.
Other than the body parts.
Okay, that's where I was going. You know where I was going. Yeah, I actually think that to some degree, well, there's just a lot. There's a lot of places we go with that.
What is love?
Gosh, you ask some difficult questions, don't you? I think we all to some degree are connected through some kind of spiritual force. And love is a kind of connection with that, between people.
I'm going to have to have you back. I got to put you on the hot seat.
Okay, hit me.
So we got to heat this up, folks. I'm going to put my
Okay,
guests
go
on the
quick.
hot seat. I need you to answer these quickly as possible.
Quick, yeah.
Okay.
The hot seat.
Is Prince Harry an alpha male or a beta male?
Sadly, he's beta, but I think he's probably all right guy.
Do you believe in Jesus?
Yes.
Are you a nationalist?
Yes.
I started White History Month,
Uh-huh.
and we're going to be celebrating the 4th year in July.
I
Will you
love you,
celebrate
Jesse.
White History Month with me?
I will, yeah.
Okay.
I love you, man.
Will you be taking the Chinese virus vaccine?
I will.
Is the pay gap real?
No.
Who caused more divorces, men or women?
Ooh. I don't know.
Will Trump presidency end cancel culture?
No.
Do you support Islam?
No, I'm not against Islam, but I don't support it.
Is sex love?
No.
Amazing. Thank you, man. That was amazing. Did you have fun?
Jesse Lee Peterson, you are a legend. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you, man. Is there anything you want to promote?
No, just my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Just Mr. Reagan on YouTube.
Check it out, folks. It's amazing. Mr. Reagan on YouTube. It really is good.
I love you. It was an honor to meet you.
Thank you. Same here. Thank you, people, for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate it. Don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. All right, don't forget Patreon. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Oh, amazing.
Amazing.
I went way over, huh?
Yeah, we went way over.
Yeah.
Next time on The Fallen State.
So how have you been dealing with the Chinese virus?
I prefer to call it COVID-19. I have found comfort in the Old Testament narratives and with a firm resolve that God will make a way in God's own time.
Knowing that the government is trying to control us in order to win this next election, why would you trust them?
It's so unfortunate the way the virus has been mismanaged, and it's exposed many of the economic disparities that are often associated with race in the United States.
Do you support critical race theory?
There's probably 2 or 3 books on them right here behind me, based on what happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, based on what happened in Louisville, Kentucky, with the grand jury refusing to indict Breonna Taylor.
But let me ask, Breonna was in the house
Let
with a
me
drug
ask,
addict
how could you
person
possibly, in good conscience, describe them as thugs?
because I love what's right and I know the truth. Thanks for watching The Fallen State. We need your continued support. Donate to my nonprofit here. Subscribe and like the videos here. And tell everybody and their mama about the show.
This is great, man. You got such a cool studio.
Thank you.
And you have a radio show too, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I'll show you the studio in a minute. I had some Kelly made an apple pie, and I had some during that break between the last show and this one, and now I want to go to sleep. That was fun though, man.
Man,
That was amazing.
I love your show. I catch it. You know, it's funny because I never watch anything religiously.